And we are live. Awesome.
Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Jake, and I am honoured to help bring an insightful and important debate between two passionate voices, Chrissy and Luca. Before I explain the situation, please introduce yourselves.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, bud.
Awesome. First of all, I'm really pleased to have you both here. I really appreciate you, both of you, taking your time to participate in this really nuanced discussion, to be honest. And I'm really looking forward to have this debate with you, Chris. I did some digging, and I actually I checked out some of your content in preparation of this debate, and I really appreciate the questions you're asking, which I feel like some of them are really quite important to address here as a vegan myself, actually. So, but who am I? I'm actually a dietitian. I did not study vegan nutrition, to be honest. I studied kind of like the quote unquote general nutrition to get a broader spectrum on nutrition as it is, and to kind of like work with as many clients as I can. Although for ethical reasons, I just provide plant-based meal plans. But yeah, I've been in this space for, I started adopting a plant-based diet around 18 years ago, and that sparked my interest in nutrition. Started doing some online content and actually studied nutrition not too long ago. So yeah, to keep it very brief, not to bore you guys with any more details, and that's where we're at. So what about you, Chris?
Well, my background isn't actually as a dietitian, but I was in low-rise residential development for most of my life. So I'm all about building and working in the economy. But I was also a very avid bodybuilder, for physique and stuff like that. So I worked with a lot of world-class nutritionists, professional bodybuilders, professional athletes to learn about performance-based nutrition. And I learned all about conventional nutrition. I've learned all about vegan nutrition, and I've made meal plans, and not really meal plans, but lifestyle plans, not for a living, but as favors to friends of mine, anybody from professional bodybuilders to people who wanted to lose weight, to Playboy playmates who wanted to get into the best shape of their lives. So I have a very broad knowledge on nutrition in general. I'm not 100% against veganism in per se. It's just that 99.9% of vegans lie about a lot of stuff, or they stretch the truth on a lot of things, or they promote so-called myths that we'll obviously discuss. You are the first vegan, number one, that I've actually talked to that admits that vegans need supplements, which is one reason why. Yeah, if you don't, I know that for you that sounds crazy, right? But if you talk to the average vegan, they will all tell you, "Oh, I don't need any supplements. I get everything I need from my food." And right away, you know they have no idea what they're talking about. So I automatically lose respect for them. And then I know they're just, A, either don't know what they're talking about, or B, lying. You didn't say that. So I was like, oh, this guy's actually a little bit different. And then when you agreed to do this debate and this talk, I was like, holy shit, this guy's not like everybody else. Because I've been trying to do this talk for years. I've been on social media since the start of the pandemic. And I had a lot more followers before. I've been banned on everything. The account that you see on my Instagram was like my 12th backup account. And it took me 13 months and a legal team to get it back. I'm banned on everything. Banned on Facebook, banned on Insta, banned on TikTok, banned on Twitter. Everything. YouTube. So for me, it's a big deal to get this message out, because I've been doing a lot of research on this topic. I have a lot of angles to discuss. And you're the first person that I believe I'll actually get a fair debate. And you're one of the only vegans in the world I actually respect. So I'll say that. So,
well, thank you so much for the high praises. And before we get started, I always love what I love most about debates, or almost what I love most about debates, is the common grounds, and 100% can attest to that. Like a vegan diet without supplementation, although technically possible, we get into some nuances here and there. I would never advocate for, because it's way easier to just supplement and get those nutrients in with supplementations, which I know we will probably get into. Kind of like that will be a big talking point about supplementations, what you think about supplementations, whether it's a food, it's not a food, and so on and so forth. I'm happy to go into that, but totally agree with you that. So we're off to a great start. Hopefully, let's see how it unfolds.
I believe it's going to be the most constructive conversation on veganism that's ever been had, because as far as my knowledge, I've never seen a debate like this yet. Not once. I've tried to make it happen many times with many different influencers, but they all said they would do it, and then the day before they all canceled. So I'm very excited. And you agree with the format, 5 minutes with a 30-second grace period at the end of 5 minutes in case you're in the middle of a thought. I don't want to cut you off. I'd rather you be able to finish what you're trying to say. I don't want it. I don't want it to be that you ran out of time. I want everybody to be able to say everything they need to say. And if we need another round of 5 minutes after the first, say, 3 rounds of 5 minutes each, no problem. We can do that. It's up to you. And,
Absolutely.
And since I made the challenge, you can go first.
Absolutely. Actually, I love that idea because I'm also open to have then an open round in which we can ask ourselves questions and answer these questions a little bit later on. But maybe to kind of like get this thing started, it's easier to kind of like explain why we're actually here. But I feel like before I actually start with the 5 minutes, Chris, why don't you actually explain why we are actually having this debate for anybody that is not that is kind of like unaware?
Would you like me to read? Would you like me to read the write up of the intro for you so that it's word by word? Because it's literally what was said. Are you happy with that, Chrissy?
Sure.
Okay, so a short while ago, Chrissy posted a video issuing a challenge to vegans to create
Wait, what did you call me?
Pardon?
What did you call me? Chris what?
Chrissy? No?
Chrissy. Chris Sky.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was Chrissy. Sorry, okay, I'll call you Chris. I'll have to remember that one. So
I like
Chris,
the sound of Chrissy, though.
I was like,
oh, Chrissy. Chrissy's good, man.
You think I'm cute or something?
What's that?
I was like, do you think I'm cute or something?
It's definitely Chris. So Chris posted a video issuing a challenge to vegans to create a one-day meal plan for a nursing mother that meets 2,000 calories, 70 grams of protein, and includes adequate amounts of DHA, vitamin B12, and vitamin D3. Luca, a vegan, responded to the challenge but was met by Chris, arguing that the only way vegans could meet these requirements was through heavily processed man-made foods and supplements. Luca then responded by pointing out that the original challenge never stated that supplements weren't allowed. He said Chris shifted the goalposts from asking whether it's possible to meet the requirements to now criticising the means by which they're met. Luca said he never claimed vegans don't need supplements, but rather that a well-planned vegan diet with appropriate supplementation meets all nutritional needs. Chrissy said many of the supplements vegans take didn't exist before 1944, and that veganism is a modern trend, a cult, and a scam. Luca challenged Chrissy to provide evidence that vegan supplements are nutritionally inferior and pointed out that many nutrients like B12, DHA, and D3 are not exclusive to animal products. They originate from bacteria, algae, and lichen, respectively. Luca argued that plant-based diets, when properly supplemented, often lead to better health outcomes than omnivorous diets without supplementation. So 5 minutes each. Over to you, Luca, man. And do you want me to? I'll put the phone up when it's 4:30. Shall I do that?
No problem. Yeah. Do a little like signal with your hand when there's 1 minute left, and then show the phone when there's 30 seconds left, just so everybody he knows.
Okay, over to you, Luca.
So,
I'm actually sharing the screens, and just a little bit of a warning. I don't see you guys anymore once I share the screens. I only see my screen that I'm sharing. So let's do that before we hit the counter. And I need your guys' collaboration now. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
But
I see your diet.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jake, let me know once the clock is ticking, and I will just get going. And if I'm still sharing the screen, I would appreciate you just chiming in and telling me like 1 minute left or something like that.
Okay. I'll tell you when there's a minute, mate, and when there's 30 seconds, I'll just let you see the timer.
You can't be you. Yeah, like he would just tell me like, look at 1 minute left. That's all I need help.
You have to speak to him because he's screen sharing, so he can't see either of us. So if you hold up the phone, he ain't gonna see it.
I'll make sure it's known, mate. Yeah. So yeah. I'll let you know when there's a minute left, Luca. Over to you. Away we go.
Awesome. So, this is basically the plan that I shared with Chris Guy before. I'm not sure if we need to go over all kind of like the foods that I put on here, but it's basically, I tried to make it kind of like as healthy as possible, in the sense that we've put in a lot of whole plant-based foods that are, although I don't feel like processing foods is that bad, or processing a food is kind of like bad per se. It depends on a lot of other things as well. But anyways, this is kind of like the breakfast, the lunch, the snack, and the dinner, and a little bit of an eating bite, chock with hummus, nibbles, and so on and so forth. So this kind of like equates to, and forgive me for going a little bit over 2,000 calories, but I took a little bit of a leeway there. 2,010 calories approximately, and 88 grams of protein. Now, in here, I also put the supplementation part. Some people are not aware that we don't have to supplement on a daily basis. Actually, it depends of kind of like the vitamin that we're talking about. In this program for this vegan nursing mom, I basically put in on a Monday morning, but again, it's just once per week, 2,000 micrograms of vitamin B12. I also put the type and the form in which kind of like cobalamin, which is B12, is bound. It's cyanocobalamin, one of the most common ones. In here, I also put some study notes in kind of like with the reference down below. That actually has been shown in randomized controlled trials as well to raise vitamin B12 status and certain biomarkers that are associated with B12 serum markers, biomarkers as well, to adequate levels. Same here for vitamin D3 from, never know how to pronounce that. Lichens? Not sure. You guys can help me out with that. And algae oil, basically. I specifically put in the D3 part. We would probably speak about D2 when it comes to mushrooms, Chris, as well. That's a discussion I'm also looking forward to it. Anyways, I've put in here all kind of like the foods into chronometers, which basically takes its nutrient sources from USDA, for example, and kind of like wanted to show you guys that we can basically get all or most of the nutrients on a whole plant-based fruit diet if you supplement. Again, technically speaking, and we'll talk about that just in a second, but maybe let's just go through all the nutrients. As you can see here, a lot of kind of like vitamins are greens. Not everyone is green. Vitamin E is 94% there, so it's basically the RDA is met, but vitamin D, that's lacking, and vitamin B12 is lacking. But fiber, awesome. 56 grams of fiber, that's definitely quote-unquote nutrient. I know some people argue it's not a nutrient. That is definitely something that we need to consume more of. About the lipids, so that's fats. What's great is we have the RDA for the omega-3 and omega-6. That's basically also reliant on ALA and LA, alpha-linoleic acid and linoleic acid, linoleic acid. And saturated fat is really low. That's also great. And basically the minerals that we have here, which are all met besides sodium, but honestly, sodium is not that much of a concern nowadays.
1 minute, Luca.
Thank you so much. And here we have the amino acids. So these are all the 9 essential amino acids that we basically need to fulfill all the functions that proteins basically do within our body. Now, since I just have 1 minute left, I took a screenshot of your diet, Chris, took also the liberty to put it into chronometer, and then we'll just scroll through. A lot of things are met, kind of like another nutrients are met, the RDA, that's great. Vitamin C is 7% there, so we will grant that. But what's a little bit something that we need to keep an eye on is, for example, the saturated fats part. which is a little bit too high to what the guidelines say and the consensus of the evidence basically as well. And especially calcium. Calcium is something that we also need to put an eye on. So what I wanted to basically show you with this is
Time.
thank you. I will just quickly finish my thought. What I wanted to show you with this is that diet in and of itself doesn't matter which type of diet we are doing, can have some strengths and some weaknesses. But I'm totally with you there. I told you that we can technically get all the foods and nutrients we want with nowadays a vegan diet, but yeah, to keep it safe, to kind of like play it safe, or better safe than sorry, kind of like take approach, I always tell people just supplement and play it safe. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show you, the premise, and we can take it from here. All right, I will pass on the ball over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Luca. We on?
Okay, mate.
Sir?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so we'll talk about Luca's diet first. And I agree, he meets everything that you're supposed to meet. He meets the minimum amount of protein. He meets the recommended daily intake of the 3 essential nutrients that vegans lack. And he's got a good variety of foods here, and he meets all the non-essential nutrients as well. So I will not say that this plan is a bad plan or unhealthy. But is it as good as a non-vegan plan? Let's analyze. So you have around 80 grams of protein. However, of those 80 grams of protein, more than half of the protein in this diet is incomplete protein. And the whole point of protein is to preserve and build muscle. So if you're consuming protein that is incomplete and has low amino acids and even missing certain amino acids that are essential for muscle building, which more than half of yours are, that already shows that it's inferior protein. So 80 grams of this protein, when half of it is not complete, versus 80 grams of meat protein is not even close. Then half of your protein comes from man-made processed sources. Now you say man-made processed sources aren't bad. That's your opinion. In reality, FDA, the European Food Safety Association, and the National Institute of Health, which are the 3 largest bodies in the world that regulate supplements, will agree that processed products are less healthy and less nutritious than natural products. And they will also agree that supplements are far less healthy than natural products. And I'll get into that in more detail later. So half your protein is from processed man-made sources, which is soy, and the other half of your protein is completely incomplete. So you have 2 inferior protein sources. And now what do we know about soy protein? This is a study from the Arkansas College of Medicine. When they took soy protein with its amino acid profile, and soy is considered a complete protein, by the way. This is the half of your protein that was complete. When they put it up against beef protein, for instance, in a study, it took 2 times the amount of soy protein. So for 50 grams of beef protein, an average person would need to eat 100 grams of soy protein to get the same muscle building properties. So it shows that even your complete protein, the best protein source you have, which is an artificial man-made source, does not come close to eating a steak. And then the other half of your protein you have is incomplete protein, which is basically like not getting protein at all. So that's the big problem with the vegan diet. You have inferior protein sources. You have less protein. You don't have any concentrated protein sources. In natural vegan foods, every protein that comes in that food, there is more carbs and more fat than there is protein. Unless it's a man-made processed source like tofu, where they have to isolate the protein and get rid of the other products. So those are the reasons why it's inferior. Then if you quickly look at my diet, and each meal I show how much DHA, B12, and D3 you're getting from the food. In your diet, you'll notice that you don't show that. And there's a reason for that. There is none. In any of the actual food vegans consume, there's no B12, there's no DHA, and there's no D3, which you proved because you just gave me a diet and the only sources of those essential nutrients are supplemented. Then you also misspoke and said that supplements don't need to be taken daily, and you said that they only need to take B12 once a week. Anybody can Google how often you need to take B12. And whether you're a vegan or non-vegan, if you're supplementing B12, they want you to take it once or twice a day. And that's even if you're taking the injectable amount, not let alone a little pill. So taking B12 once a week will definitely not get your B12 levels up. You need to
1 minute,
supplement.
Chris.
Yes, you need to supplement all day, every day with a vegan meal. So can you meet your requirements on a vegan diet? Yes, you can. Can you meet them with protein sources that are equivalent in nutrition and muscle building properties to meat eaters? Absolutely not. And can you meet your vegan diet needs without supplementation? Absolutely not. Which will bring me in the next round. I'm going to discuss all the myths that most, not you, but most vegans promote, and I'm going to dismantle them. Go ahead. I cede the rest of my time that round.
All right, we'll add it. We'll add it to the clock later in your round, so you have a little bit more than 5 minutes. Okay, cool. Chris, before I get started, can you just share the soy study? I believe the study you mentioned is the one with the Beyond Patty, right? We didn't share the study before the discussion.
Sorry, I didn't know you wanted me to. It's a UAMS research study, which is the University of Arkansas Medicine, and it was from October 21st, 2024.
2024. I'm pretty positive it's that one. It's that one. Okay. All right. They didn't measure muscle growth in that study. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's probably muscle protein synthesis.
Sorry, Luca. Are you away, mate? Is this your 5 minutes or?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Then? Okay.
But yeah, you can check if they measured muscle growth or muscle protein synthesis.
What they use is the study shows that consuming double the amount of soy-based protein is necessary to achieve the same muscle building benefits as serving simple ground beef.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, so all right, let's address your points one by one. I took the liberty to write them down. Now, number one, more than half of the protein is incomplete. Incomplete, that word gets thrown around nowadays quite a lot, and I'm not sure I'm not saying you are, I'm just speaking in general, by the way, Chris, understand what incomplete in the scientific sense means. So if we have a product and all we do is eat that product, and let's just say rice, for example, or something like that, yes, 2,000 calories of rice will give you like maybe 8 or 7 of the amino acids that you might need, but not all the 9. But rice has all the 9 essential amino acids. And I can actually share the screen. Oh, let's do that right now. So you guys can actually see that I'm not pulling this out of my derrière, as we like to say here in Switzerland. So this is a study from Christopher Gardner. Basically, I know it looks like a rainbow, but just focus on the first 9 different colors. These are the 9 essential amino acids. And you can clearly see that animal-based products are more concentrated in these 9 essential amino acids. But as you can see here, basically all plant-based proteins contain all the 9 essential amino acids, just in lesser amounts. And that's not...
You make them inferior for building muscle.
Yes, I'm coming to that part as well. I just wanted to kind of like show you guys that all the 9 essential amino acids are not just in soy, buckwheat, and amaranth. I've seen these thrown around quite a lot. It's basically in all plant-based products. Doesn't matter if you eat a berry or an apple or something like that. And not that berry and apples are great protein-rich foods, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out. So regarding your next claim that, what was it again? That they are basically not good for muscle building. I just want to throw it over to you and just ask a very brief question, Chris. When it comes to outcomes, are you more interested in mechanistic outcomes showing muscle protein synthesis going up, or are you truly looking out for health outcomes or outcomes basically in humans, in where we randomize people, match proteins, calories, and the workout program, and make them go against each other on a strictly plant-based diet versus on an omnivorous diet? What do you consider better evidence?
To me, it's all about both. You need to have as much performance as possible, and you need to have the highest health as possible. And that's why meat protein is better, because it has more, as you even said, has more amino acids. It's more efficient for building muscle, more efficient for keeping muscle from dying, and it is healthier. if you eat the right types of protein, it's healthier than eating processed products. Because with meat, we can get all our protein from food. We don't have to eat protein powders. We don't have to eat tofu's. We don't have to eat soy milk.
Or you just have to put it in a little bit because you're you kind of like eating Sorry about
but
that.
you did ask the question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I got the question, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's basically you're looking at the outcomes. You wanted to
I didn't say that. I said I'm looking at performance and health. And
that's basically the outcome.
Both for performance and health, the meat protein is superior.
Perfect. So about the health aspect, maybe we can address that later. But regarding performance, there's actually just four studies. One was a CrossFit study, which is a little bit smaller. There's just 3 studies done that actually tried to answer this question directly. Your study that you shared didn't address this question. You can look over it. It did not address actually muscle growth per se. What it actually did is it looked at muscle protein synthesis within people. Although we basically know from muscle protein synthesis research that muscle protein synthesis does not always associate with muscle growth. However, the 3 studies that I'm about to share, which are the best in this field, one is called the Swap Meet trial. The other is from Montaigne et al. 2023, and the other is from Javier Lorraine. Basically, I believe it's 2021. I could be wrong on the date. And they basically looked at not only performance, strength, and muscle growth outcomes all together, if you combine these studies, but they tried to, in the majority of these studies, they match proteins, they match calories, and they matched actually the workout program. And they actually followed these people for a long time, like 10 to 12 weeks. And they basically saw no differences between the groups within that time frame. And this has led...
second, Luca.
Thank you. Scientists like, for example, Philip Stewart and other scientists, that they basically come around and told people, yeah, maybe we were a little bit wrong about plant proteins being inferior. Yeah, sorry. I could go down, but the time.
I did give you a little bit more then because of Chris's input, but yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I didn't address all your claims, but I've wrote them down. But yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So you reference a study saying there was no difference in muscle building after they followed these people for 8 weeks. How much muscle can a bodybuilder, muscle can a natural bodybuilder build in 8 weeks? Answer, not much, virtually nothing. A bodybuilder can build a few ounces of muscle in an entire year. So to take a study and say, oh, after 8 weeks, the vegans didn't show less performance or muscle, but it is ridiculous. Because like you said, when you look at the food itself, gram for gram, there's more protein in meat, and the protein you get is higher quality and better for building and preserving muscle. That is indisputable. Regardless of any type of vegan protein you can get any vegan protein source, whether it's natural, whether it's man-made, and put it up against beef. The amino acid profile in beef is much better, superior for health, performance, and muscle building. That is not even up for discussion. Now I'm going to talk about all the myths that vegans spout, not you, but most vegans, and we're going to dismantle them one for all. The first one you've already dismantled, which was vegans don't need supplements. We already know that they need supplements. The next one is, we were never meant to eat meat. We are all supposed to be vegans forever. This is the dumbest thing we ever heard. And where am I going to go to prove this? I'm going straight to the source, the Vegan Society. It's right here, ladies and gentlemen. The Vegan Society is the official vegan society. They are the ones that created the word vegan. They created the vegan diet. They created the Vegan Society. They are the first vegans in the history of the world. And when did they get created? 1944. Why is that important? Because that is the exact same year that vitamin B12 supplement became available. It is not an accident that the first vegans to ever existed in 1944, the year that the supplement that they need to stay alive was created. So where is the first, and by the way, we all know, I think you can agree, we've been eating meat for millions of years, right?
You're asking me the question?
Yes. Have we been eating meat for millions of years as humans?
Yeah. Like I will actually.
So if we've been eating meat for millions of years as humans, when did humans even start becoming vegetarian? Not vegan, vegetarian. And what's the difference? Vegetarians eat eggs, butter, milk, cheese, eggs, yogurt, etc., which have the DHA, B12, and D3 because they're animal products. So vegetarians can survive on food without supplements. Do you know when the first incidence of vegetarianism was?
Sorry, what was the question again?
The first known human vegetarians.
Don't know, to be honest.
Vegan Society tells us the first vegetarians were almost 2,000 years ago. Pythagoras and the original Buddha. These are the first people to start discussing vegetarian diets according to the Vegan Society who created veganism. So if we've been eating meat for millions of years and we only even started talking about vegetarianism 2,000 years ago, how can a vegan make the claim that we were never meant to eat meat when we've been eating meat millions of years and we've only been vegan for 80 years? Millions of years versus 80 years. And why weren't they vegan 2,000 years ago? Because they didn't have the supplements they needed for the B12, DHA, and D3. You will not find one sample of a vegan person prior to 1945. Vegans will lie and say Pythagoras was vegan, even though their own vegan society says he was not. So this idea that we were never meant to eat meat, completely false, because you just admitted we've been eating meat for millions of years. Meanwhile, we've been vegan for less than 100.
1 minute,
We
Chris.
already established, sorry, 1 minute?
Yeah.
We already established the protein sources in vegan are far inferior to meat sources. And we've established that there were no vegans ever before 1944 because the supplements they need to survive did not exist. So how can a vegan diet be considered optimal where you need supplements to survive? And how can a vegan diet be considered superior to a diet that only has food, no supplements, no artificial man-made products, and a diet that has been proven for millions of years versus a diet that we have no long-term studies of? 80 years means there's no generational studies. We have meat eaters going back thousands of generations. Vegans might go back one. You yourself have only been vegan for 18 years. What, half your life? So do you think that you built your muscles and everything else on a vegan diet when you already had all that before you became vegan?
Time.
Absolutely not. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for that. And all right, a lot of ground to cover. Okay. Let's start maybe again. Let's focus back on the muscle growth part really briefly. There's actually meta-analysis that puts soy versus whey protein against each other, and it's practically kind of like the same. And that's a meta-analysis. It's not just relying on one study like you shared. Again, your study was not
Sharing muscle growth.
Your study was not sharing muscle growth. Let me emphasize that. I'm sharing the best quality evidence we have. And those are 3 studies, and that's undisputable. 3 studies. And I challenge you to find me better studies actually designed than these 3 studies. You won't be able to find them at this point. Now, am I stating that plant proteins are the best out there, blah, 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 blah? No, it's 3 studies. I'm not actually kind of like leaning out of the window just yet, but it's 3-0 showcasing there's no differences when you reach a threshold of around 1.5, 1.6 grams of protein per 1 kilogram of body weight. Anyways, going now to your next points about we were always meant to eat meat. No pushback from my side. We've been omnivorous and kind of like our ancestors ate whatever they could get their hands on. I guess that's pretty undisputed, to be honest. But maybe some vegans will try to convince you otherwise. I'm not one of those. I'm really happy to accept that fact. But where I will push back is on the rhetoric of the appeal to nature and appeal to the tradition that you are making here. Your assumption is something that we did for a millennia of years, or maybe even millions of years, or whatever. Just because we consumed a certain thing for that long of a time makes it healthier for us. Now, I'm going to challenge that fact. Number 1, dirty water, contaminated water. We've consumed that ever since we got our genes from contaminated water. We are not doing that anymore. Why? Because it's healthier to not consume contaminated water. But according to your logic, we would need to consume contaminated water because you're appealing to nature and you're appealing to tradition. Now, the next point is basically, when it comes to kind of like the food composition and the nutrient composition, a lot has changed since back in the day. Like if you look at meat, for example, or if you look at the banana, for example, the soil have been depleted, not by significant standard, to be honest, but the soils have been depleted. The chickens are 4 times the size of where they are right now. The nutritional composition of beef has changed. There's way more saturated fats than it used to be in there. And I guess we can all agree. And also more sodium in there, to be honest.
Agree on that. It depends on what kind of meat you have. If you have conventional grain, then you need, we'll call it
Farm, well, especially wild and conventional. So the stuff that most people are consuming. I'm not talking about wild if you go out hunting and stuff like that. But I'm just speaking in general terms. So if you add all that up, it basically becomes redundant to have these discussions about what we ate and where we evolved from. Because I want to see what happens with people that consume the food we are consuming today, that is available to you and me. And for people that you and me and live in a very privileged position, we can buy supplements, we can buy fruits from supermarkets. And when we look at health outcomes, vegans tend to do just fine, just like omnivorous people. They are, so in some parts they are better in certain health outcomes like cardiovascular disease, in certain cancers. In some they might not do as great, like all-cause mortality, like the pescatarians. But if you compare them to omnivorous people that eat a healthy diet, health outcomes in humans today,
1 minute, Luca.
it's basically the same thing. And that's basically what you consume, kind of like look to. There's like a systematic review that has been released. Yes, last year looked at health outcomes, practically the same. The Adventist Health Study 2, basically one of the best prospective cohort studies, not the best, but one of the best, basically showcasing that if you eat a healthy omnivorous diet, if you eat a healthy vegan diet and vegetarian diet, and that's a great, by the way, a cohort that has very same interests, basically, because they live by the same standards and kind of like lifestyles, etc. We are basically there. So I would challenge you on that fact that whatever our ancestors ate, that sounds sexy, but it's not really feasible, and it doesn't hold a candle to kind of like the health outcomes we have today with the foods we are consuming today. So that's what I would do. All right. The stage is yours, Chris.
Okay, so first I'm just going to go back to you saying that the biggest studies about protein are the ones that compared 8 weeks worth of vegans versus non-vegans, and a study that compared soy protein to whey protein, and you saying that they're all equivalent. Those are not the most important studies. 8 weeks is going to show no muscle building from any natural bodybuilder, no matter what they consume. And in the other study, they're comparing processed soy to a processed milk product. Why didn't they compare the soy to the beef protein? The reason they didn't is because beef protein contains a higher concentration of essential amino acids, which are crucial for muscle building. And these essential amino acids are more readily available for muscle tissue to utilize. So right there, that shows you, without a doubt, that beef is superior to any type of plant protein for muscle building, muscle protein synthesis, and the preservation of muscle. Now moving on to you pretending that we've evolved and we've moved past what the traditions of millions of years ago. Those aren't traditions, Luca. That was called survival. If 100% of your ancestors didn't eat meat, you would not be alive today. That's not tradition. That's called survival. Then in 1944, vegans via technology came up with a new way to survive. That does not mean that they somehow got better or evolved. You are now relying on man-made artificial products called supplements, literally in order to survive. Now you're going to make the claim that supplements are food and that supplements are no worse than normal food. And that is 1000% certified bullshit, because the 3 largest bodies in the world that regulate and discuss supplements are the FDA in the United States, the EFSA in Europe, and the National Institute for Health in the UK. What does the FDA say about supplements? This is the main article from the FDA, entitled, "Supplements are no substitute for good nutrition." That is literally the name of the article from the FDA. No, dietary supplements are not intended to replace food. They are designed to supplement an already healthy diet, not substitute for it. While supplements can fill nutritional gaps, They lack the full spectrum of nutrients, calories, and other beneficial compounds found in whole foods. So right away, they tell you that A, they're not food, B, they don't hold the same nutritional value as food, and C, they are not intended to replace food. Meanwhile, in your diet, 100% of your essential to survive nutrients come from supplements, proving that they are inferior. What does the European Food Safety Authority think? The exact same thing. Supplements are not food. Supplements are not meant to replace real food, and supplements should not be your only source of that nutrient. In fact, if you go to Europe, any supplement a vegan buys in a store in their little bottle, it'll have a warning label on the bottle that tells you this is a supplement. This is not a food, and it is not intended to replace food or be the staple of your diet. They literally have to, by law, write that on every vegan product they sell, that this is just a scam, this is a gimmick, and this is not as healthy as real food, and you should not be using this in place of real food. And not one of these products have been tested for long-term viability, because none of these products have even been around for more than 80 years. So when you have all the three bodies who not only govern, but research and regulate supplements, all telling you supplements aren't food, supplements are not a substitute for good nutrition, supplements should not be replacing food, and supplements cannot be a long-term solution for a diet.
Chris, 1 minute.
So I don't know where you're going to try to come up and say, oh, well, I have this vegan study that says supplements are good, and I have another vegan study that says supplements are good, and I have all these vegans that are supposedly healthy with the supplements. Congratulations. That's called anecdotal evidence, and it's not friggin' real. It's that simple. The reality is the people in charge of supplements tell you they're not food, they're not as healthy as food, and they're not meant to replace food. So this has nothing to do with tradition. This has nothing to do with evolution. This has to do with vegans only being able to survive because they rely on technology, which provides them inferior nutrition and an unproven long-term result. Period.
10 seconds if you want it.
He can have it.
Sorry.
Appreciate those 10 seconds. You're all awesome. All right, let's take it from there. Let's get going. So, you basically started off by discrediting or kind of like talking down on the studies I shared, basically going 10 to 12 weeks, not 8 weeks, by the way. But I looked up the study you shared. And again, it was just one study and from a mechanistic study, so a muscle protein synthesis study, not looking at muscle growth. The study you shared basically did go for 4 to 6 hours, and that's it, because that's when they measured kind of like the muscle protein synthesis in participants. So this, I'm not really understanding kind of like how you're outweighing kind of like this evidence, just telling the studies that I'm sharing.
Oh, amino acid
Profile. Which product has a better amino acid profile?
Sorry, but now you're strawmanning here.
That's what determines the protein source.
You're actually disrupting me. I would appreciate it.
Carry on, Luca. Carry on.
I mean later that. So yeah, just wanted to share that. So I'm not really sure where you're going with that, because you basically proved my point because my studies lasted longer, since that is kind of like a critique point from you. Now, never meant to be eating meat, kind of like, again, we evolved to be omnivorous, but being omnivorous doesn't necessarily rule out the part that we can just move on to eating more plants or less plants or restricted plants. It leaves that open to be tested. And we live now in a certain time where we know a lot about our bodies, about nutrition, about nutrients, and so on and so forth, in which we can afford that actually to do so if we want to adopt a strictly plant-based diet for ethical reasons. Because yeah, vegans are, when someone basically states he's vegan or she's vegan, what that means is that we don't want to objectify or see animals as slaves. And we don't just want to contribute to kind of like the animal industry. But going back to my point, which I don't recall you actually answer, if you appeal to nature and if you appeal to tradition, which you're doing here, that's what you're doing here, why are you not drinking contaminated water? Why not? And you can ask why are you not contaminated water?
I'm appealing to survival. We established you
survival.
supplements. That's not tradition.
Appealing to tradition. you're
No,
you're
it's not.
woman
It can't be
again.
words in my mouth. Sorry.
Not-
I'm not
Luca, carry on. Luca, carry on.
Yeah, sorry about that. You can have the stage as soon as I'm done. Again, you are not answering kind of like the points that I'm raising, and I would appreciate you answering. Why are you not drinking contaminated water? Just address that point. Like that's one out of things we did.
contaminated water.
You're
That makes no
interrupting
sense.
again. So you have your time soon. Now moving on to the muscle growth study. Can you cite a better one? That better ones than the ones I share. I reviewed all the data myself. There's none, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you have, and I'm willing to be open to kind of like read those. So, as part as supplements are not food, I believe that's kind of like standing on misrepresentation of what the definition is. I'm not disagreeing with that. You can just eat supplements and you don't have to eat foods or meals. Supplements are not meal replacements, but supplements are food. And that's an undisputable fact. As a matter of fact,
Literally said they're not.
even in the, everybody can look this up. Everybody can look this up. It's legal. It's legal. It's actually in the regulations in America. And I can point out, I can share a screenshot right here. Supplements are food. They are classified as a food, and you can look up the definition of food. They fit right within the category. What they are not is a meal replacement. Okay.
1 minute, Luca.
I haven't stated that they are, but supplements are food. Even by legal standards and whatever standards you want to look at that. That's undisputable. And if you want to challenge me on that fact, I challenge you again. Look up the law, look up the definition of foods, and look where supplements are. You'll find that in there. So there's that. Also, the last part you mentioned, vegan evidence is anecdotal. Not sure where you got that from. That's actually where the carnivores got their, actually, most of their studies are kind of like that they're sharing. Vegans don't have to do that. We have randomized control trials done on vegan diets alone, strictly plant-based diets again. We have prospective cohort studies. And these two things together are basically the gold standard of nutritional evidence. Yeah, we need prospective cohort studies and randomized controlled trials together to answer, for example, really important questions like chronic diseases health outcomes. You cannot randomize someone on like 10, 12 weeks or for months and look who develops cancers. That's not doable. That's not
Time up.
why we need prospective cohort studies. So the stage is yours.
Okay, so first of all, why would I drink contaminated water? I wouldn't. So why are you even bringing that up? It's a false equivalency. We're not eating contaminated meat. We've been eating meat for millions of years. We needed to eat meat to survive. So it has nothing to do with tradition. It has to do with what you need to live. And once again, you would not be alive today if 100% of your ancestors didn't eat meat. That has nothing to do with tradition, and that has nothing to do with drinking contaminated versus uncontaminated water. That's called survival. Number two, your idea of how can I say that beef protein is superior to vegan protein because you said you cite two vegan studies that try to say they're the same. How about you bring up your little amino acid profile sheet and compare the amino acids, especially the 9 essential ones for building and preserving muscle of beef to any vegan protein. Surprise, beef has more amino acids than any vegan protein. Beef has more of the essential acids for muscle building than any vegan protein, but you're going to sit there and try to tell me that somehow it's equivalent? If you have $150 and I have $100, is that equivalent because we both have money and they're both American money? No, you have more money, so yours is better. If I have beef protein with 5 grams of protein and you have soy protein with 5 grams of protein, but my 5 grams have significantly more amino acids for building and preserving muscle, which is the higher quality protein? Answer, it's pretty obvious. So there goes that lie. The other lie, oh, supplements are food, supplements are food, supplements are food. Okay, I'll say that supplements are food even though they're not. Are you going to try to argue that the FDA, the EFSA, and the NIH say that they are not as healthy as food, not meant to replace food, and not meant to be your sole source of that nutrient? No, you cannot deny that. And you cannot pretend that there's a better source because it's vegan versus the FDA, the EFSA, and the NIH. It is their job to do this. You also didn't address the fact that there are literally warning labels on every vegan supplement telling you it is not meant to replace food, telling you it is not as healthy. So how can you pretend that a vegan diet is as healthy when you need to rely on man-made products that the creators and the regulators tell you this is not as healthy as if you were eating a natural product, yet somehow you insist it is because it's vegan? Then you have this bullshit about vegan health outcomes versus non-vegan outcomes. Every one of those studies takes a vegan versus somebody on the normal American diet, some fat 300-pound loser that eats McDonald's, KFC, Dunkin' Donuts, and all this other garbage. And then they compare them to a vegan who literally writes out their meal plan and has people cooking them their food. Every vegan study is always biased and always set up to try and make the vegans look better than they really are. So right away, when you're citing a study done by vegans, you are already lying and you are already misrepresenting reality. And you already proven that you lied about the protein sources, because you know as well as I do that you put the amino acid profile of beef up against any vegan protein and it's superior, period. And the amino acid profile is the #1 factor of how good a protein is, period. You cannot deny any of these facts. So let's recap. Veganism has nothing to do with tradition. It has to do with survival. You would not survive without your supplements. You would not be here if 100% of your ancestors didn't eat meat. So that has nothing to do with tradition. That's called science, nutrition, and what humans need to survive. You pretend supplements are food, great. We already established that they're inferior to real food, not meant to replace real food, and actually come with warning labels on the product so they can't get sued after the fact when people use their products and it doesn't do what they're supposed to do.
1 minute, Chris. 1 minute.
Let's go once again. Vegans never existed until the 50s. Why? Because they couldn't. Not because of tradition, because they literally couldn't survive without the man-made processed products called essential nutrients. Now we have vegans that can get fake essential nutrients and they get inferior protein sources, pretending that they're healthier and better than everybody else because they're vegan. And you use feeling arguments instead of factual arguments. Like, why would you drink contaminated water? You literally just try to change the subject, deflect. You're doing what vegans do when they already lost the argument. Because you cannot argue that supplements are better than real food. You cannot argue that you would be alive today if 100% of your ancestors didn't eat meat. And you cannot argue that you would not be healthy if you didn't rely on vegan supplements every single day. Period.
Fine.
Right on time.
He's rehearsed this, hasn't he?
Damn, like a Swiss clock coming from a Swiss guy. All right, thank you so much, Chris. So let me reverse that and kind of like almost start in the middle part there. So you mentioned like that the studies are done on vegans are usually just done compared to the normal American diet typical guy. That, no offense, that right there basically tells me that you did not read any studies, because scientists are aware of that fact. Scientists know something called multivariate adjustment models when it comes to prospective cohort studies, randomized control studies. That's what randomized control studies are. We try to set an equal ground and the only thing that is basically deviates from the group is the intervention. Hence, maybe kind of like the plant-based diet versus a healthy alternative. Or if it's a junk food vegan diet, which I'm not sure there's any studies done on that, it's a junk food American diet or whatever. So they are setting the ground there. And I encourage everybody to look up the 7-day Adventists. And those are not your typical junk food American. Those are not. And there's over 100,000 of them. And we have decades worth of data basically comparing all different types of diets against each other. Now, the warning with the meal replacement against that comes from a misunderstanding. Foods, although supplements are kind of like a subclass of foods, they fall into the definition of food, but so is alcohol. So is a chewing gum. But nobody's arguing out there that a chewing gum or alcohol should replace a full meal. Supplements are what they are supposed to do. They are supplementing the diet. they're supplementing a vegan with B12 that he might is lacking in. Although you can get, technically speaking, I know I'm aware of duckweed, I'm aware of D3 or D2 from mushrooms, basically, but I'm still taking supplements to play it safe. And supplements have, by the way, been shown in randomized controlled trials, and I have the links here. I'm happy to share the screen with you guys. And I know that you probably will bring up the conflict of interest, and I made sure to check the conflicts of interest. One of the studies that I will be sharing actually was funded by the pork industry. Yes, pork industry. And the other had none of the conflict of interest. And what they basically did show was that supplements are either equally as effective in raising serum biomarkers of the nutrients that we talked about, or even better because they are in kind of like quote unquote free form and not like withholding the from in the food metrics that your body has to take care, kind of like out of the of the animal-based products. Now, the amino acids, the 9 essential amino acids, that also stems from a misrepresentation on your end, because what I showed you is the concentration of the amino acids. And once you met a certain threshold, it doesn't matter where you're getting your protein from. Otherwise, we would not have this outcome data, basically. If animal-based protein was truly superior and people ate more amino acids during while eating the other diets in these experiments, by the way, they ate a higher concentration, but at certain points we reach a threshold, which we all agree. Once we reach a threshold of certain vitamins or the RDA or whatever, any excess of that, your body basically either gets rid of it or in the sense of amino acids does produce certain, I don't know, maybe gets converted into glycogen or whatever. Your body's kind of like needed for those things. Also, the contaminated water, that fits perfectly in what you're basically stating, because you're appealing to tradition. And again, I'm saying this again. It's not a lot of survivorship.
Great lie.
It's about survivorship. It doesn't matter if I'm here or not.
1 minute, Luca, 1 minute.
It's what do the health outcomes show with the food you and I eat today? Because as I went over, and you can look at, for example, studies from Eaton, etc., they looked at food composition of what our ancestors ate. The food composition was so much different back in the day. That is just one variable out of thousands of variables that you and I probably cannot think of. So I look back, the life expectancy was way lower back in the days due to hygiene reasons, and we evolved with science. And we evolved our kind of like nutrition food system with science as well. Nowadays, we know better. And that's why we vegans can exist if we want to make that ethical choice. So that's all I'm trying to say here. Now, you can look back and still say, oh, we evolved eating meat, you're not be here. Okay, I'm agreeing to that fact. I'm not disagreeing with that. But you and I, we don't live thousands of years ago. We live in the present day, and that's why we're having this debate. So let's have the debate today.
Okay, I say this should be the last round, and then we do the question period. Cool?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's maybe a point that you bring up which I haven't addressed, maybe you can give me the chance to address it.
That's the question period for.
I'm meaning to do that.
The question period is for us to bring up any topics that we missed or any topics we want to revisit and get a response directly. So
okay.
I'll ask a question, we'll ask a question each, and we'll get like 5 questions. So you'll start with a question, I'll answer it, I'll do a question, you answer it. I'll just do my last 5 minutes first.
Absolutely, go.
Okay, so once again, you're changing the whole argument from factual to feeling, and that's what vegans love to do. They talk about nature, they talk about tradition, they talk about false equivalencies like dirty water, which has absolutely no actual merit. The reality is, for millions of years, we ate meat because we had to survive. The reality is, vegans still need to eat meat to survive, and if they don't, they now need to rely on man-made supplements, which are inferior in nutrition and inferior for their bodies. And how do we know that? Whole foods, especially fruits and vegetables, and whole grains, contain a wide variety of phytochemicals and other beneficial compounds that are not found in supplements. These compounds play a role in disease prevention and overall well-being. Other benefits food has over supplements. And notice how they say food and supplements and differentiate, while you lie and pretend that supplements are food, when the regulators literally tell you food versus supplements. So they're different. Greater nutritional value, protective factors as phytochemicals and antioxidants, macronutrients, and all the rest of the stuff that you need is in food, not in supplements. Nothing to do with tradition, has to do with survival. Your idea that it doesn't matter how concentrated amino acids are or how many amino acids are in the protein, that is complete, absolute bullshit. How many vegan Mr. Olympias are there? The pinnacle of bodybuilding. Answer 0 ever, and 0 ever will be. Why? Because of the inferior amino acid profiles in vegan proteins. They will never be able to build as much or as dense muscle as a non-vegan. And that is why in Mr. Olympia, you will never even see a vegan in the top 10. You might see vegan bodybuilders becoming pro bodybuilders because they can still have better bodies than 99% of people out there. But when you go to the top of performance, the top 0.01%, that is 100% meat eaters and always will be, because like you admit, but pretend is irrelevant, meat has a superior amino acid profile, which makes it superior for muscle building, superior to prevent muscle wasting, and provides superior muscle once that muscle is built, period. So you can lie all you want, because that's what, as the debate got on, you got more and more dishonest as you were losing more and more, and it's quite obvious for people to see that. So that's why I like when these debates go long, because the longer they go, they always favor me. Because you started out factually, and then as every one of your facts got disproven, you turned it into a friggin' argument about nature, about feelings and everything else. And that's what vegans always do. They lose the factual argument, so then they change it to a moral argument, because morality is subjective, and now they can't lose. Because we can argue all day if it's right to eat plants or right to eat animals, because there's no right answer. So I keep it strictly fact-based. And the facts are, vegans never existed, not because of tradition, because they couldn't survive. Vegans are not healthier than non-vegans because they have to rely on non-food supplements, which are not healthier than real food, period. Vegans do not perform better than non-vegans, especially when it comes to muscle building, because they have inferior protein, period. And I'll address the last thing you said about my diet being high in saturated fat. I made a diet that after the first 2 meals already met all the nutritional requirements. So I gave the woman to be able to make like whatever dinner she wanted. And I let her make a pot roast. If I was trying to make a healthy diet, I would have made her make a steak or a fillet. I made her make a pot roast to show that even after a meat eater can choose to eat whatever they want, even unhealthy products like that, they are still getting more nutrition than the vegan diet. So that was literally a trap I set up for a vegan like you to bring out. Because if I wanted to, I could bring that saturated fat way down, and I could add a snack to bring in all the non-essential vitamins up that you said were lacking. But the important thing is, every one of my meals shows the essential nutrients we get because I actually get it from my food, which means that my diet is better than your diet, no matter what you say.
30 seconds if you want it.
30 seconds? Okay, so the 30 seconds. The vegan myth. Vegans don't need supplements. Meh. We were never meant to eat meat. Meh. Vegan protein is as good as ours. Meh. Supplements are food and just as good as food. Meh. And vegans existed prior to 1950. Meh. There goes all the vegan lies in 30 seconds. Cheers.
Time.
Question period.
All right. So, well, you basically kind of like repeated a lot of things and also said a couple of things that I relied on my feelings, etc., while I actually stuck to the data. And I actually also took your data and analyzed it and saw that, well, it's not holding a candle against the studies I'm actually referring to. And if you allow me, can I pose your question first?
That's what we're doing. This is the question period.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go first.
No timer? You don't want a timer, or?
No, you can leave timers out, right? Unless someone starts talking and doesn't stop talking and deviates.
Moderator to shut them up at that point.
Exactly. So maybe we can set up a rule here. if someone is not answering the question but basically jumps around, Jake, I would appreciate if you can chime in and point us back to the kind of like question at hand. I would.
No trouble.
You beat it, Chris?
Go ahead. I'm waiting.
Perfect. All right. So number one, you said, and I quote, every study done on vegans was against the average American. That's factually wrong. That's
Okay, not every study, the vast majority of studies.
That's reality. You can say otherwise and you'll be lying. So I misspoke. Sorry, guys. Out of the 1,000 million facts I've given today, I misspoke by saying that every study that vegans did is against the American diet, when in fact it's probably closer to maybe 75 or 80% of the studies. I'm so sorry. You're right. I was wrong on that point. There you go.
All right. Can I ask a follow-up question to that, or do you want to ask your question first?
You can ask all the questions you want.
Perfect. So following up question to that point, which study has compared a vegan against the average American guy? Which study can you point me out? I'm not particularly very astronomy, but I read
Plenty of studies that compare vegans to the average. They call it the SAD diet.
the SAD diet. Absolutely, that's the standard American diet. But I'm asking you about specific references. Maybe that's a little bit unfair to me.
I'll put my hit on. I have dozens and dozens
Of vegan studies, and the vast majority of them, once again, compare vegans with a perfectly planned meal plan against the average American on the SAD diet. They never, very rarely, can you show me one vegan study that gets a vegan to get whatever they want and then gets a nutritionist like me to make a perfect omnivore meal plan? I haven't seen one of those studies. Can you show me one study where they got somebody like me who's a nutritional expert to create an omnivore meal plan and put that meal plan up against the so-called vegan meal plan? Can you find me a study like that which would actually be beneficial?
Absolutely. Those studies have been done. And I actually already shared one of those.
Only one.
But before I'll do that, I'm not sure we read the same studies, to be honest, because the vast majority of studies I read did not do that. So let me be clear with that. And unless you shared a couple of the studies, and I don't care, you can just use Google or something like that. I'm not aware of the studies comparing actually a SAD diet, but that's basically kind of like the point I want to make here. For example, Health at 20 study 2. You can look that up. That's a pretty healthy cohort of people eating way more fiber than the usual American. And we have 100,000 people in there. So there's that.
Because they ate fiber, that means
They were eating a healthy diet. That's absolutely ridiculous. And you're literally changing the entire topic to talk about studies that you can't reference, studies that you can't say specific. But you're saying vegan studies are vegan good. That's all you're saying. That's all you've said in this entire question period. You haven't made one point.
I'm not sure where you're getting that. Like, you're basically straw-manning my point. You're trying to kind of like escalate.
You're not making a point. What's your point? What is your point? I answered the question.
Is that the studies you're referencing are hallucinated. They don't exist. That's my point.
You're saying that there's no studies that compare a vegan to a SAD diet.
No,
okay.
I'm saying
again because you're literally. I already answered this question, and you're literally going in circles.
I'm saying you said 75 to 80% of the studies done on vegans was done on compared.
The ones that I read. The ones that I read.
Huh? Sorry.
The ones that I read, about 70% of them.
Can you cite one?
What?
Can you cite one?
Why would I have to cite one? I don't need to cite one because, unlike you, I don't have my computer in front of me and I can't go on Google right now. So, and I don't need to cite one. I've read them, and you cannot deny that there are multiple vegan studies that compare vegans to the SAD diet. Next question. You're literally wasting 10 minutes on the same topic, and you still haven't made a point. All you said is, I can't cite a vegan study. Congratulations. I can't cite a vegan study because I don't have a computer in front of me, and I don't memorize the studies that I friggin' read.
No worries. No worries. Again.
How about we go to a real question? I have a question for you. I have a question for you. Would any of you or your family members have survived as vegans prior to 1950?
Prior to 1950?
Have,
Probably not, but I wouldn't be vegan at that point.
thank you. So can you even point out any vegan in the history of humanity that ever lived before 1950?
No, but I don't need to do that for the reasons
You don't need to do that. So veganism is
now,
as healthy as non-vegan. It's my questions now. My question. So you acknowledge that you wouldn't be alive.
I would appreciate it if I can elaborate on your first question first. It's not really fair to interrupt me while I'm actually answering your question.
I asked you a very simple question. It was a yes or no question.
It was not a yes or no question.
A vegan that lived before 1950.
It was not.
You
it
said
requires
no.
nuance, as this topic requires.
Okay, Luca, carry on. Luca, carry on.
I could put you into the same spot, but now we're deviating.
No, you cannot. Try. Put me in the same spot.
Answer the question properly. No, I would not be vegan at that point because it doesn't make sense. We didn't
it doesn't make sense. You wouldn't.
It only comes to nutrition. We probably just discovered B12. Food regulations weren't the same here. Food deserts were probably more widespread than nowadays. But again, it's not about the 1950s, Chris. I'm still waiting for you to make a single case that with supplements and with the foods you and I eat today, why should I not eat a vegan diet? You always go back.
Excuse me, I didn't make a case.
Same question. Why are you not drinking contaminated water?
Why would I drink contaminated water? I have clean water. I don't need to drink contaminated water. This is the kind of shit that vegans do. This has nothing to do with the topic. What does contaminated water have to do with vegan?
Okay,
and you just asked me a question. How can I say that supplementing is not as healthy as not supplementing? Because the FDA, the NIH, and the EFSA all say that supplements are not as healthy as real food. Supplements are not meant to replace real food, and supplements come with a warning telling you that they can't replace real food. So you sitting there and telling me supplements are just as good as real food when all the evidence says otherwise is a full-based lie.
Never said that. Never said that a single time. Never wrote it.
Okay, so do you acknowledge? Do you acknowledge that supplements are inferior nutritionally wise to real food? So you're lying. You're lying because they literally say they are. How can you say that when they say they are?
Let me quote you a very
okay. Answer this question. Does the FDA?
Wait. You cannot jump around from one question to another.
It's the same question. Same question. Rephrase.
That's unfair.
Same question.
Right there. That's fair. If you ask me a question, allow me to answer it.
Okay. Right, shall I bring the timer back? You can ask questions. You get 30 seconds each, 1 minute each.
Yeah, let's do that. Because now he's cheating and he's lying.
If you just ask me like 5 questions and I just have 30 seconds and you jump around from one question to another, it's not very fair because I cannot address the question. So regarding your food versus supplement, meal replacement specific kind of like thing. Okay. That's you putting words in my mouth. Okay. So supplements is classified as foods, but they are not a meal replacement. And supplements are there to supplement.
Please
allow me to answer, Chris. You're interrupting me again. This makes you actually look kind of like bad, and it seems like you're super emotionally, and you wanted to debate me from actually answering the question. You want to distract me, but that's not going to happen with me. Okay, I'm staying on point.
Yes or no answer, bud.
I'm answering your question.
No,
okay? How am I lying? How am I lying? Okay.
Because the question was a yes or no question.
Tell me exactly why I lied right now. I said exactly what
you're lying. It's that simple.
I said supplements are classified as foods, but they're not
meant to be a
meal replacement.
That's not what I asked. I asked you very simply, yes or no. Are supplements as healthy and nutritious as natural food? Yes or no? Yes, supplements are as healthy and nutritional as natural food, or no, they are not. And I asked you a very simple question. Yes or no?
It depends, and that's not a yes or no
question. Lie! The answer is no!
So, allow me to elaborate on that point a little bit.
No, it's a yes or no question, and you're lying!
Age of 50, you might have trouble absorbing vitamin B. B12, and that's basically been proven. You can look that up. And what is recommended for people at that stage in time? To supplement vitamin B12 because it's better absorbed. Same after kind of like menopause, women are basically usually kind of like advised to take vitamin D and calcium supplements and so on and so forth because they lose
With more.
Supplements are there to help you when you need
You
them.
didn't answer the question.
That's
It's a yes or no question.
not a yes or no question. It's
It
a more
is.
question.
And the FDA, okay, my turn again. So you're pretending that it's not a yes or no question when it is a yes or no question. Either something is healthier or it's not. And you're saying it depends. Meanwhile, the people, the only bodies that have authority on this are the FDA, the EFSA, and the NIH. And according to all three of them, they say that food is more healthy and more nutritious than supplements. So are the FDA, the European Food Association, and the NIH lying? Or is Luca just smarter than all of them? Because they clearly state, I'm not done. They clearly state the international governing bodies on food, drugs, and supplements clearly state unequivocally that food is healthier and more nutritious than supplements. They even require a warning label on supplements telling you that food is healthier than supplements. But here you are saying that no, food is not healthier than supplements. It depends. Meanwhile, the three governing bodies that have far more authority than you are stating unequivocally that supplements are not as nutritionally sound as food. So I will ask you a question. According to the FDA, the NIH, and the EFSA, they state that supplements are not as healthy as food, not meant to replace food, and they put a warning label telling you us on their products. So are you going to sit here and tell me that the FDA, NIH, and EFSA are wrong, and even though they say they're not, according to Luca and some vegan study that he will cite, that supplements are now somehow equivalent or better than food?
Can I
Right.
answer?
I'm going to give you the same amount of time, Luca, to answer. Okay, so we'll have what, 60 to 90 seconds? Are you ready? Okay.
Chris,
You are actually misrepresenting kind of like the definition of all these authorities you just stated, and you're actually proving my point. Number one, you might actually not recall because you actually also did not read the studies, and I'm doubting you actually read any studies, to be honest, with the conversation we had today.
basically,
All the randomized control trials we have show that
FDA.
really
Answer
bad.
the question.
Chris, come on, man.
Chris,
Go ahead.
come on.
Go ahead. You're a
Can
joke.
I? Okay.
1 minute left.
randomized control trials we have, which have no conflict of interest. I know you will probably bring this up. Show, and I will go through that again, that when you take a supplement, they can raise all the serum biomarker to the same extent or even better than natural food sources. And this very, very kind of like important when we specific people
Luca.
might need supplementation. What about people with morbid Crohn's disease, gastric bypasses, etc.? They are reliant on supplementations, and also, for example, vegans that supplement B12. So what's kind of like, no one is arguing out here that they are meant that one B12 supplementation pill needs to be replacing a whole meal. No one is arguing that, and I never argued that, and probably no vegan is arguing that. And you're
not the
putting
question.
in my mouth by actually stating that.
That's not the question. The question, once again, which you didn't answer,
I answered.
the question once again was, according to the FDA, the NIH, and the EFSA, who all state unequivocally that supplements are not as healthy as food, supplements are not as nutritious as food, supplements are not meant to replace food, and put a warning label on their products telling you that supplements are not as healthy, supplements are not meant to replace food. The question was, is the FDA, NIH, and EFSA wrong, and that supplements really are as healthy? And your question, and you said, oh, they are as healthy because it can raise the serum levels. That has nothing to do with health. I asked you if they have the same nutritional value, which the FDA, NIH, and EFSA all say they don't. How can you say that they do when these governing bodies have more authority than any so-called study you can cite? They are put in place to regulate these products, and they tell you in black and white that these products are not as nutritionally healthy as real food. So I'm going to ask you again, based on what the FDA, NIH, and EFSA say, not what your vegan study says, not what you feel, not what the person down the street says, based on the 3 largest governing and most authoritative bodies on this subject in the world, which say that supplements are not as healthy as food, are you going to say that they really are and these 3 are wrong and they have a conflict of interest and they're lying? Or are you going to admit that according to the FDA, NIH, and EFSA, supplements are not as healthy as food? Period. That is the question.
Okay, I'll answer. You let me answer, okay? Promise?
If you go off topic,
Promise?
this is the last. If you do not answer the question and go off topic, this is the last question and it's the end of the debate.
No,
Because I've had enough. I'm already getting pissed off because now you're starting to lie at every question.
You are completely misrepresenting the definition of all these authorities. Let me ask you a question, which will also answer kind of like your question. Supplements are not meant to replace a meal or something like that.
That's not what I asked. I asked you if they're healthy as food.
The same
Answer
as
the question.
supplements are not healthy or as healthy as food.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm asking you a question.
Supplements are not as healthy as food, as
Does that
proven.
definition mean that?
What are you trying to say? We literally just read from the FDA, NIH, and EFSA that supplements are not as healthy as food. I asked you if they're wrong, and you know better than all of them, and you asked me the exact same question without answering it. That's the end of this debate. We've already proven that Luca lost. We've already proven that nothing else to talk about. Because now he's just not going to answer this question because he knows if he answers the question honestly, and the honest question is, no, supplements are not as healthy as real food. Supplements are not better than real food. He will have to acknowledge that the vegan diet is inferior to the meat diet. So he's not going to answer this question. He's going to pretend the FDA, NIH, and EFSA have no authority. He's going to pretend that they have a conflict of interest. He's going to pretend that this is a subjective idea. And he's going to pretend that they never put in black and white writing that supplements are not as healthy as food. And they never put warning labels on their products saying supplements are not as healthy as food. So final question, end of the debate after this. Are supplements as healthy as food?
I will not make a final
Yes or no?
statement.
Are supplements as healthy as food? Yes or no?
Answer my question already. You don't understand the definition. And I said it kind of lies.
It's not about definitions. It's about results.
It can actually
So now
say
you're changing the question from what if now you're changing the question to what is
Over to
supplement?
Luca, man. Over to Luca. Come on.
Okay.
Had enough.
Now
We're
that
done.
we actually understood.
We're done.
that
We're
the
done.
meat
We're done.
represents- No.
We're
One
done.
final
Send me this.
statement. One
We're
final
done.
statement. And I will
Bye.
All right. Bye, Chris. I will say this and it will be uploaded.
okay?
Bro,
One
send
final
me the
statement.
video because I gotta
All
post it
the
everywhere to show everybody how
supplements
full of
that
shit you
you
are.
just
Told us they are so unhealthy. And by the way, I don't agree with that, okay? That's not my point. All the supplements you just told us are so unhealthy are the supplements the animals are actually eating that you are.
That's also bullshit.
No, that's true.
Okay, so if I go and buy grass-fed beef right now, they're fed supplements? No. If I go and have chickens in my backyard, which I do, and make eggs, are they supplemented?
Yeah.
Now, once again, you didn't answer the question and
have the
change
same
the topic.
problem
This is what
the
vegans
humans
do.
have.
This is what vegans do when they get asked the question they can't answer honestly. Bye-bye.
Fermentation of the bacteria B12 happens to for the digestion.
Yeah. Keep lying, Luca.
and kind of like
Yeah.
chickens.
Yeah.
They need to be supplemented with that. Same as with the
Totally. Yes, totally. Keep
milk
lying.
that needs to be fortified. And also iodine in the milk that's usually gets in there because of the disinfectants that they're using in there.
And if you want to prove me wrong, please go ahead and look it up. It's totally true. And I guarantee you.
1000%.
As a matter of fact, we don't have to go that far because you actually misrepresented the definition of what the FDA is and other authorities basically mean when they say a meal or a supplement is not meant as a meal replacement. Nowhere does that state they're not as healthy as a meal.
Yes, they do. That's exactly what they state. Stop fucking lying, you fucking stuck cock. I hate right here. Benefits food has over supplements, greater nutritional value, protective factors such as phytochemicals and antioxidants. This is the FDA saying that food is healthier than supplements, and you're saying they didn't say it.
A supplement is meant to supplement.
Yeah, we can share our thoughts after that because Chris is not around. He's not here to defend himself. So yeah, I guess all you guys watching this, thanks for watching all this way through. I'm not sure where we can actually share this, whether it's done on better on YouTube or on Instagram. We shall see. We shall see. All right. You can actually stay in here, Jake, if you want. So we can add the thought discussion. Let me end this.